So we have such an exciting announcement. If you haven't already heard, the Million Cat Challenge is not going away. We are evolving. And we, thanks to hashtag Maddie's, or hashtag thanks to Maddie's, we have a new grant program, and it's called Maddie's Million Pet Challenge. It is open, right? Our applications are open right now at maddiesmillionpetchallenge.org. So there's 4 different things that you can apply for. One is Learniverse at UC Davis. I know a lot of you have already taken boot camp. The second one is Shelter Consults. So if your shelter needs help getting better and providing more safety net services and working more efficiently and all those things, A to Z, you can be awarded a pro bono consult. And the genesis of Maddie's Million Pet Challenge is to help communities create access to care clinics. So the open door model is another pro bono mentorship opportunity as part of this grant. And ultimately, we are looking for communities where we can do the shelter assessment and help a clinic. Could be a for-profit clinic, a community public clinic run by government, or a nonprofit clinic. Run an open door model access to care clinic. And then the other part of it is targeted programming. So if you needed help with a specific program, like community cat programs or anything specific, you can apply for one of those. Finally, we also care very deeply about shelter staff, and we have a program with Jessica Dolce, again, that you can become a part of. We have a big dog webinar series training coming up, so check it out on maddiesmillionpetchallenge.org. And thank you so much, Stacy, for this time.
Quickly, does anybody have any specific questions for Dr. Pizano about this? I know I've been on a couple of calls where, there was a video earlier this week that was released, right, on Facebook Live or something like that. So I was checking that out. Okay, so we have, what was the link for that grant? So should they just go to Maddie's Pet Challenge?
maddiesmillionpetchallenge.org. Right now, if you go to the Million Cat Challenge website, it should direct you to that website now.
And all right, super. Does the Million Pet Challenge have any specific targeted goals? I mean, I know with Million Cat Challenge, the goal was to get to million cats. So what are your metrics for tracking for success?
Oh, that's a great question. Number one, our ultimate goal is to create communities where everybody's covered. So the shelter is working as efficiently and to the best of their abilities, keeping animals out of the shelter, only using the shelter for animals that have no other options right away, combined with that access to care clinic, right? So that community doesn't have to face surrenders because of medical issues. So that's one of our overarching goals, is to create community-wide safety nets. And that could be through any of these avenues. The other thing that's coming up is something that everybody's going to be contributing to. So watch for a new announcement, but it does have to do with helping animals. We've always used the metric, right, Stacy? Shelter intake, that's the metric. Are we succeeding or failing? That only tells us a part of the story. And so we are going to be announcing another way that everybody can get involved, and it has to do with a million or millions. And we want it to be tens of millions.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that sounds great. Let me just do a quick scan, see if anybody else has any. Nope, I think the questions are all here. So do you mind if I ask you another question while I have your attention?
Sure.
A little off topic, but being the Dr. Sara Pizano that you are, and you're all swinging in the world with the veterinarians, what's your take on the veterinary shortage and technician shortage? What in a snapshot, how are things going with regards to that issue?
Yeah, I think there's just multifactorial issues. One is I have some concerns about veterinary schools really pushing students into specialty areas, Overall, less than 1%, Stacey, even before the pandemic, less than 1% of veterinarians devoted their careers to shelter. So we were already in trouble. Now you combine the veterinary debt, you come out of school with $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in debt. You have no choice but to look at your job prospects and weigh them by how much money you can make. So as corporate veterinary practices become more common, they are attracting, right, because of those with signing bonuses and things like that. But overall, I do believe the veterinary industry is behind the times. Now, 90% of the veterinarians graduating are female, but yet when you look at veterinary practice hours and what they're demanding of their veterinarians, it's not mom or family friendly. And remember, a lot of these vets are in their 30s and 40s with families. So I think the veterinary industry needs to shift. I also think that our mental well-being has to do with access to care. And that's why I'm so excited about the open door model, because when I do per diem in that clinic, which I once in a while do, and I happen to be doing on Monday and Wednesday this week, there is nothing like looking at a client who doesn't have that $150, they have $30. There's nothing like being able to say to them, don't worry, your dog's in pain, your dog has this issue, don't worry. We're gonna figure out how we're gonna get your dog all the care they need today. And for me, that's right. That's what prevents compassion fatigue. So I think that there's a lot of different reasons why we're here, but I think whether you're a shelter or a private practice, you need to figure out what your veterinarians want as a, who are working with you, and everybody work together to make sure that everybody's getting sort of the life-work balance that they can. There's a lot of work being done with Open Door Veterinary Collective, which is the nonprofit training program that we're doing. We have a VIP program for veterinarians to support shelter veterinarians so they don't feel alone. So we're working, there's a lot of us working in a lot of different angles, but I would say, don't always go for the pie in the sky. I want a full-time vet, working however many hours. No, maybe it's going to be a combination of per diem or part-time, a group of veterinarians and things like that. We have to change the way, like, we look at the whole landscape, but very, very serious issue, Stacey.
And I would say also, and then I will get off my little soapbox, but I think that the role of the practice manager, however that might look like, may even be more important than the veterinarian, because it's their guidance that allows for that flexibility. So, we craft a job description for a full-time veterinarian, and this is what it must be, but the practice manager needs to be prepared for a veterinarian that comes in one day a week, or, a bit that how do you have your standard and protocols, and you manage, multiple hands basically in there doing the work, but making sure that there's a certain level of consistency. And I think then that practice manager role becomes really important.
Yes, and what we're going to see, I think, in the very near future is, veterinary medicine's behind the time. We're behind the human medical, right? So look, you have nurse practitioners, you have, nurses at a higher level, right? So we don't have that in veterinary medicine. That is an important gap that we need to fill, and there's people working on that as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you joining us today, for Dr. Pizano, for that great announcement. I appreciate it very much. And we are about at 12:30, so I'm going to release everybody for lunch. And I am going to say we're going to come back at 1:30 very promptly. I'm going to launch it off with cat trivia. If there's anybody from the team from Maddie's Fund out there that would like to be the guest cat trivia reader, if you can just identify yourself in the chat, and then I will make you a panelist for that when we get back at 1:30. That would be great. We'll start off with a little cat trivia and get going with regards to the Community Cats Grants Program. Go ahead.
Can I ask one more thing I forgot to mention? This Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're doing an introduction to the grant webinar. So look for that too. Maddie's is we're all sending out announcements about that as well.
So there's just a last minute question here too. What happens if you have a professional you have a bad vet in your community harming pets? I would assume you report them to the organization, the
There's a
state
state board,
organization.
state veterinary board in every state. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I assume that's what you do.
You.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pizano. Thank you for spending a bit of your Saturday with us.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right.